Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jenn Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Johnson along with Jenn Foster, the owners of Elite Online Publishing. Hey, Jenn, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside and inside.
Well, good, because it's raining cats and dogs here. So listen, we're going to get started. Today's topic is leadership, what you didn't know that you thought you knew about leadership that's going to change your world. But first, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and you leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. So leadership is a huge topic now. And you know what? There's so many different ways to come about it, to look at it, and to be a great leader. And I always tell people, I didn't think I had to look at leadership stuff. I'm leading my own company, I'm leading myself, but then I realized I was the leader of my family. So, you're leading yourself, you're leading your family, you're leading friends, even in groups, and your business. There's so many different ways to use leadership. So what I'm saying is this is for everybody, the things that you're going to learn today. So welcome, David Dye, and welcome, Karin. We have Karin Hurt. So they are authors of several books on leadership. Welcome for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's our pleasure.
Well, tell us a little bit how you got in this industry and about some of your books.
Oh, well, so before starting Let's Grow Leaders, I was at Verizon for 20 years. So the first decade was a variety of HR assignments. So HR, merger integration, training, organizational development, that kind of stuff. Then I went out and did a variety of field assignments. So I led a 2,200 person sales team, a 10,000 person customer service organization. And so everything we do is grounded in reality. It's very, very practical. In my last role there, I was working to transform our strategic partnership channel, which is all the outsourced call centers that take Verizon's calls. And we went through a period where we had a challenge with the customer experience because we had ramped up real fast when they first started selling the iPhone. And so I was brought in to do a bit of a turnaround and working with these companies. And as I was doing that work, I was telling the same stories again and again, trying to create really practical tools to support these companies to help transform their cultures. And so I started writing a blog because I thought this would be helpful for these companies and for the folks on my team internally who were working with them. Well, the blog took off, got an international following. I started getting these phone calls. Will you come speak? When's your book coming out? I'm like, wait. I have this day job. But then I thought about it. And I'm like, wait, I could do that. And so I gave Verizon 4 months notice and I went out and started Let's Grow Leaders. And then.
And so for me, my leadership journey and interest in it really started when I was about 11, 12 years old. I was the oldest of 6 kids. And sometimes in parenting as it was, I'd be left in charge of my younger brothers and sisters. And that very quickly turned me on to the questions of how do you get a group of people to do something with influence? Because power is an illusion. You have no power as an older sibling, and ultimately you don't actually have power as a leader, as a manager. You have influence. And so my career was in human service, and as an executive, I helped replicate organizations around the country. And similar process, I was doing a lot of leadership development and training for senior managers and leaders. And it got to be more than I could do one-on-one. So I started a blog to replicate and scale that knowledge and the things that I was sharing. And in the process, discovered my fundamental joy for helping leaders become that best version of themselves. Same process, started my own business doing that. And then Karin and I met via online writing about leadership. And that eventually led to us recognizing our alignment around our approach to human-centered leadership and decided to write a book. We were living 1,700 miles apart, wrote a book. That book is Winning Well, A Manager's Guide to Getting Results Without Losing Your Soul, which is a very practical approach to human-centered leadership. So you're not sacrificing your humanity or losing your mind in the process. And then as that book was coming out, we had become really good friends, discovered that we wanted to do more than just be friends, and we got married, merged our businesses, and that ultimately then led to our next collaboration, which is Courageous Cultures, which is how to build teams of micro innovators, problem solvers, and customer advocates. And that book just came out recently, and so we've been sharing that and those resources and tools with leaders around the world.
So that's some bonus relationship advice. If you want to, or if you're looking for true love, write a book.
I love it.
You'll either fall in love or won't like the person ever again.
It's a whole new twist on online dating.
Right, exactly.
Like I always say, it wasn't a swipe right or left situation, but I would have swiped the correct direction if I had known.
Yeah. Well, I want to say regarding your first book about losing your mind with the leadership, I think you should have a whole series on that. How to be a parent, right? Without doing it. How to be a caregiver. I'm a caregiver right now for my mom who is half paralyzed, and I'm trying to lead her and influence her to do things she doesn't really want to do because she's 89. Like, what do you mean I have to work out and have to do this stuff? So I think you could have a whole series.
There you go.
That, okay. So tell us, you have a system. There is some things that you talk about, the 5 concepts that you cannot lead without. What are those things?
Yeah, so it really starts with showing up with confidence and humility and focusing on results and relationships. And we like to talk about landing in the and. And so, if you're having to have a difficult conversation, how do you do that in a way that you're showing up with confidence, that you feel prepared to have the conversation, but humility that you don't have all the answers. There's another side of the story, and focused on getting the results or the behavior change that you might need, and also leaving the relationship better after the conversation. So those are the first 2. Show it with confidence and humility, and then focus on results and relationships.
And so you'll find that we are incredibly focused on practical tools that you can apply immediately. So that model of confidence and humility, results and relationships, that's all the theory that we share when it comes to leadership, because with those 2 sets of focus, those internal values and that external outlook on results and relationships, you're going to be able to find the answers you need in the moment. But from there, we talk about mind the MIT. MIT stands for most important thing. There's always going to be more to do than you possibly can do. So what is it that actually matters most this year, this month, today, in this moment? And what are the things that we do behaviorally? What are the actions we take that actually contribute to that? And so again, back to your question, whether that's leading a corporation, a 5-person small business, or your family, the same principle applies. Consistent communication. If it's important, are we communicating it 5 times, 5 different ways? In this world, not that it ever was, but in this world, once is never enough. If we communicate something once, we haven't communicated it. So it's the consistent touch points that help people to internalize what it is that matters most. Then check for understanding, which is communication is a loop. There's a send and there's a receive, and communication hasn't happened until the send and the receive match one another. So that's a process of checking, are we on the same page? Is the person you're speaking with picking up whatever you're putting down, or are you hearing whatever it is they're saying and hearing from one another that way? And then finally, the last one is what we call scheduling the finish. And this is a mistake that so many of us make in our urgency, is that we assume that everyone understands when this thing needs to happen, when it needs to be done, what done looks like. And scheduling the finish simply means we don't leave any of that to chance. We talk about exactly when something is going to happen. When are we meeting again to discuss that it's done, that it happened, or what does done look like? So it ensures that there's follow through in the completion of the things that need to happen. So those 6 fundamentals, competencies you can't lead without, they provide a backbone and a spine for all of your influence and leadership, making sure that everybody's on the same page. We know where we're going, we know what we're doing, and they make everything else that a leader does possible.
Oh, those are all so many great things. It sounds like we need to read your book for sure. That's great.
So you also have like the mindset too, and putting people before projects. So I think that's really a key, putting people before projects. And how do we make sure that we do that?
Yeah, so we were very deliberate in saying put people before projects, not people instead of projects. And, if there's anything the last 16 months has taught us is the importance of real, genuine human connection, the ability to be a little bit vulnerable, to really understand what people are needing right now, to stop there first. And so we really, in all of our long-term leadership programs, really talk about how do you do that really well. And, it's do you know people's names? Do you understand? Even if you have a large team, do you have a system that you can show up and use people's names? Do you have an ability that when you're doing a one-on-one, that you are really not just focusing on all the tasks, but not only focusing on building the human connection with the person that you're having the one-on-one with, but helping the person that you are leading to think about their network of relationships and how are they showing up generously in those relationships as well. And when you can do that, when you can invest there, it is amazing how much faster and more productive you can be in your projects.
Yeah. And then how do you do, because we're kind of talking about that communication with the people and the projects. How do you have great meetings and team meetings? So often they get derailed. You end up talking about the weather or other stuff that's not really important. And, do you have a kind of a system for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most of us are familiar with, having an agenda. Just talking to a friend of mine who was complaining about a CEO saying, "I love to have an agendaless meeting." And he said, "A meeting without an agenda isn't a meeting, it's a hangout session." And there may be value in that, but let's not call it a meeting. When we're talking about a meeting, yes, we have an agenda. We know we need to do that. But here are some other things that people sometimes don't think about. One is the purpose really clear? And are we making sure that we only have one purpose to a segment of a meeting? If we're making a decision, we're either deciding about where we're going or how we're going to get there. We're not doing both at the same time. And that's a frequent mistake that people will make. So choosing the goal or choosing the methodology, but let's not mix those. Another common mistake is we don't have the right people in the room. Either we have too many people or too few. So our guideline for what's the right number, you want the minimal number of stakeholders to make the best decision. So all the interested parties are represented, but no more than needs to happen. So one person per interest is typically going to be enough. And if it's a big meeting and you need to let some people go to get everybody involved at the beginning, then let some people go so they can get back to doing other things. Because our second principle is, if someone's attending a meeting, is this the most productive use of their time? And that's a high bar, but why would you want somebody doing something that isn't the most productive use of their time? And so as a leader, it forces us to think about, am I having this meeting and inviting them for my convenience to serve myself, or because it's ultimately going to serve the team to the best effect? And then one other aspect of starting a meeting well is to be clear about who owns the decision. Again, a common mistake, and it grinds meetings to a halt, and it causes a lot of frustration, is, we think that we have a vote going on or that we're going to have a consensus, but really a different person is deciding, and no one knew that going in. And so when you hear like, "I don't know why you ask us our opinion, you're just going to do what you want," that's a lack of clarity around who owns the decision. And there's only three options in business. It's a single person, or the team is voting, or we're going to make it a consensus call. So we're going to be upfront about that. Here's who owns the decision. I want your input, then I'll make it. Or we're all going to get each other's input, and then we're going to vote. But we're clear about that up front. So those are some things to start the meeting well.
And then, of course, you want to end the meeting with, who's going to do what, by when, and how will we know? And that is just such a big challenge. Sometimes people they leave that to chance. And so really, that's where the scheduling, the finish comes in. And then, of course, the checking for understanding throughout the meeting. Are people picking up what you're putting down? And so that can be something as simple as, okay, I just want to be really clear here. What's the first thing we're going to do when we leave this room? What's the next thing? And get them to feed it back to you so that you can hear and make sure that they got it. And then we also have an emotional check for understanding, which is simply, how are you feeling? And it's amazing if you can just stop in a meeting and just say, how are you feeling? That's when people feel safe, the psychological safety to say, you know what? I like the idea, but I'm concerned because the long pole in the tent is IT. And I think this guy's overwhelmed. And, that kind of stuff starts to surface.
Yeah. And, I really like what you're saying about that follow-up and stuff. I can't tell you, we've had times in our meetings where we set something, we thought everybody knew what they're supposed to do. And then, it's due the next week and then nothing is done. Well, I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
Well, did you communicate with me? Did you tell me? It's like you're going through that whole thing. It's like, so there's an accountability, like you said, throughout the process. How long, without having to feel like you're micromanaging someone, how often should you be checking in on their progress to see how it's going? So you don't feel like you're like on top of them. They're still having the freedom to do it, and you're leading them versus micromanaging them.
Yeah, it goes back to that scheduling the finish thing. So if let's say it's a 2-week assignment and you've got a very clear time where we are meeting to go over the results of whatever that task was, that's going to be adequate. If it's a longer thing, like say a 6-month type of a project, schedule some check-ins. So it's on our calendar and I know when that check-in is happening. But here's the thing, to make those check-ins really valuable, we're bringing something to that. So if you've given me, Melanie, an assignment and I'm working on it, maybe that first check-in is I need to bring you a spec sheet, or I need to bring you a rough draft, or I'm bringing something concrete to that meeting, not just a, hey, David, how's it going? Oh, it's going great. There's some actual tangible thing I'm bringing that is a demonstration of here's the process and here's the progress. And that alleviates the need for us to constantly be feeling that need to check in. We know it's happening. We both do.
I really like that because it's built-in check-in points, so they know ahead of time when you're scheduling that meeting of that they expect that they're going to be there in a week or whatever to do that. And how do you really empower people? Is there a way to empower your team?
One of the concepts that we teach is helping to do strategic empowerment by helping people understand what decisions, where the guidelines are. So we talk about hard lines, like there are hard lines in business. These are things that you don't have any decision-making power in. This is compliance issues. These are legal things, right? This is your brand standards. Like, we don't want people getting creative with our brand standards. This is the font size. This is the color. That's a hard line. Yeah. Guidelines are areas where you say, okay, you have leeway here. As long as you stay within these parameters, go make the decision. Just keep me informed. And then, and then you've got your lines, which are, you do this any way you want. I want you providing recognition to your team every week. Here's your budget. Don't take them to a strip club, but other than that, go for it. And this really came. I was doing some really strategic coaching with a fairly senior person at a tech company. And she was getting super frustrated because her team, she's like, they're telling me I'm micromanaging, but it's weird because they bring me these decisions that I don't need to be involved in, but then they'll go off like a wild, wild west and make some big decision. And I'm blindsided when I hear about it from my boss. There's like, they're pulling me into the wrong things. Yeah. So this is where we took these hard lines, guidelines, and your lines. She came up with the parameters, communicated with her team. Everybody relaxed. And they were more efficient because she wasn't getting pulled into things she didn't need to be.
That makes complete sense. And I can see how all of those things that you just said apply to a parent with their kids.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm telling that's your next book. We're gonna roll that in. You're gonna have a whole series. There's like
we do have a children's book.
Well, there's the 5 languages of love. They do it for couples. They do it for teenagers. They do it for parents. So I just set the seed there for all of those that we have. Tell everyone where they can reach you and get more information.
Yeah, so our website is letsgrowleaders.com, and you can get free chapters to all the books. We have a blog. I do a LinkedIn live show on Fridays, asking for a friend. David has a podcast, Leadership Without Losing Your Soul. You can find all that if you just go to letsgrowleaders.com, and you'll see the pathways there.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for being on our show today, both David and Karin. So much information that you gave us. So that wraps it up for us today. But remember, if you're looking to write a book and want to become a #1 best-selling author, we guarantee that, whether it's Wall Street Journal, USA Today, or if it's Amazon, at Elite Online Publishing, go to the submission form there, and we'll see if we think you're a good fit for us. And we'll see you next time right here at Elite Expert Insider.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand?
This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.